I've been playing a whole lot of Dark Souls. So basically, the way I'm looking at Dark Souls right now is I am playing until I get to a point where I just get too frustrated to continue. And so far, that hasn't quite happened yet. There's been a couple times where I came close, particularly with the most recent boss I fought. Actually, well, the boss itself wasn't giving me a whole lot of trouble. It was mostly getting to the boss that was giving me trouble, and my Stream Deck is just like freaking out. I don't know what is the deal with this thing. I'm going to try disconnecting it for a little bit. But anyway, so the footage that you're going to be seeing here, right now, the first bit of footage is from that fight against Vort of the Boreal Valley, which is, the one I talked about having fought a little bit before we did the podcast last time. And this fight that I did against him, I got through like, I don't know, I want to say 3/4 to like 7/8 of the fight without getting hit when I finally beat him. Like I just was like, just somehow was able to dodge like all of his attacks and was doing a great job. And then like he was down to maybe like an 1/8 or a 1/10 of his health, something like that. And then he started hitting me, but I still was able to beat him. I have the footage here recorded. I was very happy with that run, especially because that almost never happens. Like usually, even on victory runs against a boss, it's usually nowhere near, like, I don't last anywhere near that long before I get hit. And yeah, so it ended up being a really good run and was able to beat him. After that, the next boss I fought was the cursed tree thing. I don't remember what it's actually called.
Oh.
I did not, or well, I didn't record my victory run, unfortunately. But I did fight him. Like, it definitely was, I think that's probably the one I died the most on. And it was mostly because of all the enemies that spawn, much more so than the boss itself. There was like one time I got to the end of the boss fight with that one, or like down to like just basically one more hit would have definitely killed it, and then it killed me. And then after that, I had a bunch of failed runs, and finally was able to beat it. Like I said, I don't know how many tries it actually took me to beat that one, but I did, beat that. And then I went on into the, I think the next fight I did was probably the sorcerers. I think they're something or other. Sorcerers of something. I don't remember what they're called, but it's basically just like the sorcerer that sits there and casts spells until you hit it enough times, and then it teleports, and then eventually it starts spawning clones, and you have to, go kill the correct one that's firing a certain color of beams, and so on and so forth. But the summary of it is basically I felt like that was a meme boss, because it wasn't necessarily technically as easy as Pinwheel, but it felt pretty similar on the difficulty level because I beat it on my first try. So there was that one. And then the next one I had was, let's see here. I'm just trying to make sure I'm remembering all the different bosses I fought. I think the next boss I fought was Deacons of the Deep. And this one did take me several tries. Mostly it was because like the very first time I fought them, I was just initially running around and, just killing a bunch of them because I figured that there was a finite number of them. And, eventually like maybe 3/4 of the way through, like 3/4 of the way through my first attempt, I figured out, oh, you have to hit the glowing one. And so then I started doing that. But when like the main version of the Archdeacon, when he spawns, I didn't realize that I needed to take out the blue guys around him. And so they ended up getting like the big curse cloud going, and then it ended up just cursing me and killing me. And I think I gave it like 1 or 2 more attempts after that, and failed to get through it. And then I just, was kind of looking at, okay, is there some strategy that I'm missing here, something I'm missing? And it was suggested that you use, I can't remember the name of the ring, but there's a ring that when you hit multiple enemies in a row, it heals you as you hit them. And then there's also the Chloronathi ring, which is something that was also in Dark Souls 1, where it speeds up your stamina regeneration considerably. So I went in, so I could go into the fight with my big long sword, which of course I had to use my Zweihander because I got the Zweihander and I wanted to use it. And, just doing my horizontal swipes that hit a bunch of enemies at once. So I wasn't losing a whole lot of health. And once I realized that I did need to take out those blue guys specifically, I was able to get through the fight pretty easily. And it was just like, I was just about to go to bed, and I saw, after seeing this information about the strategy, or about having that specific equipment and everything, I went back in and beat it in 2 minutes, and it went a lot faster. But yeah, so that was pretty satisfying. Next boss, I believe, was the Abyss Watchers, and this one, first time I went into the fight, I lost pretty fast. I didn't even get halfway through the fight. But I did use a summon, the Black Hand Gothard is what his name is. Yeah. Or Gotthard or whatever. Anyway, point is that I used the summon because I was just like, okay, I don't know what this fight's going to be like. So I went ahead and did the summon because it was there. And, first time I lost pretty badly, but the second time I went in and I won pretty easily. I mean, got through the first half and then got through the second half, and between having the Abyss Watcher that was fighting on my side, and then also having the other guy, the summon that was helping to distract them a bit, it wasn't too hard for me to take them out. And yeah, so that ended up working out pretty well. I'm trying to remember if there was any other fights. I know that there was, so both the Sorcerer and the Tree I didn't get recorded, unfortunately. But I think I got the rest of my victory runs recorded. But then I did the High Lord Wolnir, so that's in the Catacombs. Now, I'll start playing the footage for that here in just a little bit, but I want to talk a bit about the Catacombs itself. So, I thought I hated the Catacombs on Dark Souls 1, and of course, I did because of, obviously it was, very dark, or actually I guess it wasn't the Catacombs. What was the name of it? Well, I did hate the Catacombs. The Catacombs weren't the worst part, though. I'm thinking of the Knight's Tomb or whatever it was. That was super dark. But anyway, so the Catacombs in this game, those skeletons. Oh man, they were just pissing me off so much. Especially because, like in Dark Souls, once you take out the Sorcerer, then, or I guess no, the Necromancer, I think is what it was called. But anyway, once you take out the Necromancer in the area, then the skeletons can't respawn anymore. However, in the Catacombs in Dark Souls 3, with most of the skeletons, unless you hit them with something that they're weak against or with a holy weapon, they respawn basically. And now I eventually figured out that they only respawn once, but it was still just it was just annoying. It got very annoying. And of course, I was mostly using Zweihander throughout this. But I was definitely just having, it just wasn't very effective, unfortunately. So, I looked into it some, and basically, found that the best thing to use against them if you don't have a holy weapon is clubs, because they have strike damage and they're weak against strike, and you can actually knock them down, and sometimes, a lot of times, you can take them out in one go. And even if you can't, it's faster, especially if you're using like the one-handed club. So that's what I was doing primarily. And I mean, once I figured out using the club was a lot more effective, I started using that most of the time, and I basically just used it for the entirety of the catacombs. Definitely still had some issues here and there, especially with the run to the boss, because there's like one of those skeletons that like wields I can't remember the name of the weapon, but a weapon that causes bleed damage. And so I ended up dying to that a bunch of times, which is really annoying. And what's even more annoying is like, so I was recording the footage that you're going to see here this evening, and before I had been doing that, I hadn't really been having that much of an issue with these guys, at least not in a while since I started using the clubs. But I kept getting killed by this guy, and it was just really pissing me off. And so I end up just, continuing through. Some of the times he was just keeping me from getting back to the boss, and it was really, really annoying. But backing up a little bit, before I had done all the stuff I wanted to do in the dungeon, I had just happened to wander into the boss's room, and I started the fight. I wasn't really sure what to expect. And the second I walked into the fight, I, was going in completely blind. My thought was, okay, I'm holding a club, it's because, skeletons are weak against clubs and all that. And so I just was like, I made the very stupid mistake of running directly up to the boss's ribs and trying to attack him. I died basically immediately because of the curse or dark damage or whatever it is. After that, I did look into, okay, what am I supposed to do in this fight? Because, yeah, I could try to figure it out myself, and I probably would have been able to figure it out, but I have a feeling that more likely than not, it would have taken me a little bit longer to realize that attacking those bracelets was the main thing you should be doing in order to take out the boss. And so once I found out that was the case, most of the runs I did, I could take out 2 of the bracelets. I could at least take out 1. Most of the probably about half the times that I took out 1, I was also able to take out the second. And then obviously the final time that I beat him, I took out all 3. But the thing about that fight is that it seemed like it was very much an RNG kind of thing, where sometimes the boss would stay near the bottom of the arena initially, and then sometimes the boss would like crawl up to the top of the arena, so that once he started spewing his dark gas or vomit or whatever you want to call it, there was no way to escape it, and so that I would die instantly. And I think that basically what I figured out was that I needed to get close enough to him while he was down at the bottom in order for him to stay there, rather than him climbing up to the top of the arena. But once I figured that out, I was actually able to avoid that error from coming up quite as often. But yeah, I ended up just sticking with the club that fight. I tried a couple times doing the giant, I think it's just the large club, because I didn't have enough strength for the biggest one. But it definitely was something that took a while. But oh yeah, the footage that's playing right now actually has him like right up at the top of the arena at the beginning before I've gotten any hits on him. And it's just like, oh yep, there was no way I was going to survive that time. But anyway, so yeah, it was basically just Club City the whole time. And I actually kind of dig the club. I don't think that I would be using it normally necessarily. I mean, Zweihander is still my baby, but I I think the club is great from the standpoint that, for one, it is very fast and you can get a lot of hits in, but also because of the fact that it scales with strength. So, as your strength goes up, it does more damage. In addition to the default amount of extra damage that it does. So there's that. I will, of course, include the footage if it doesn't end up playing as we're talking, of the actual completion of that fight. But I was able to complete that fight and get it recorded before we started tonight. So I'm trying to think of what if anything else there is to say about the catacombs. It was just annoying, and it was mostly those skeletons and the ones that throw the dark bombs at you are really annoying, and stuff like that. Thankfully, I didn't ever die to the skeleton balls because I knew that they were there, and once I knew that they were there and how to destroy them, it wasn't anywhere near as bad. So, yeah. But I think that's basically everything. I'm still thoroughly enjoying this game. I'm not yet at a point where I can say for sure whether I like this better or Dark Souls 3 better. I mean, it's probably going to be... Right now, it's still Dark Souls 1. But a lot of it just has to do with the fact that Dark Souls 1 I've already completed twice. And this one I'm still early in the game. Oh, I did end up getting the DLC because it was... Even though I really should have just... When I bought it originally, I should have just gotten the DLC because it would have saved me probably a couple dollars. But Instant Gaming still had the DLC on sale, the season pass for that. So I just went ahead and grabbed that. Figured it just made sense to go ahead and get it because even if I don't necessarily like all of it, I enjoy the game enough to where I want to do everything. So might as well. But yeah, that's all I got.
Oh, so no other games?
Yeah, no other games, just those two.
Okay. All right, cool. So where did you last leave off in after High Lord Volnir? Because I'm trying to remember what area comes after that.
Well, the next area is Smoldering Ruins or something, but I haven't actually gone in there yet. I literally I beat the boss, I went back and cashed in some stuff with my souls, and then I stopped playing. So
Okay. So wait. Smoldering Ruins, is that...
Smoldering Lake is the next one.
Smoldering Lake.
And it's an optional area, but I'm going to do it, of course.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to ask if you were... Well, I went to see where you were going because I knew that there was the optional area, but I was going to mention that if you... I was say you could go that way if you wanted to, but you already know about it and you're already doing that, so yeah, that's definitely good. You're definitely making a whole lot of progress in a very short amount of time. I mean, I shouldn't be too surprised considering how fast you got through Dark Souls 1. But yeah, I definitely see that now. I guess really depending on how you feel about Dark Souls 3 is going to depend on, I guess, largely your playstyle from the original Dark Souls, because I think that really depends. For people who really enjoyed Poise from Dark Souls 1, they really hate Dark Souls 3 because it does not have the same amount of poise as that. Now, personally for me, one of the reasons why I enjoy Dark Souls 3 more is just because of the fact that it is sort of faster paced, I guess you could say.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is something that they sort of took a page out of Bloodborne for in that regards. So for my type of build where I just go wielding my great sword and don't really do much of anything else, Dark Souls 3 is pretty much a perfect match for me. I mean, I can do that in Dark Souls 1, but this way is just so much more efficient, especially with having, I think, slightly more iframes as well with dodging, so it really helps. So I mean, you're a pyromancer, so I don't know how much that type of build changes between 1 and 3. So like maybe I can't really speak on that end, but who knows? Like we'll definitely see how that goes. But yeah, I'm definitely glad that you are enjoying that so far. Um, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, Pyromancer, like I definitely lean less into the Pyromancer aspect, and more into strength build. But the Pyromancer is basically just like, okay, this is a supplement to my strength build, because there are occasions where having that fire is super useful. Like one of the spells that I just purchased is one that allows me to add fire to any weapon. And so it's like, oh, that'll be useful. I could see that being useful for certain enemies. It's not something I'd use all the time, but like if I'm in an area where there's a bunch of enemies that are all weak to fire, well, I'm going to take advantage of that, especially because the fact that then I'm not reliant on spell casting time so much all the time, because that's one of the things that always ends up being a downside to using spells, at least in 3, is because of the fact that you have to build up stats related to that. And like I know that building up your dexterity helps a lot with that, because I've done that. If you have higher dexterity, you cast spells faster. But then of course, intellect and faith are also important for Pyromancer in this game compared with Dark Souls 1, where I don't know how much difference it actually made. But once again, I mean, the fire abilities, like I use them, but they're not something where I feel like I have to use them at all times. I prefer using weapons as much as possible, and that's like my go-to 99% of the time. So the fire spells are more just useful like when I have an enemy that's a bit further away, or if I know someone's specifically weak to fire and or strong against physical attacks, then I'll use the fire spells instead. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the speed I'm going through it, I think it helps a lot that I got a lot more comfortable with like how these games work when I played Dark Souls Remastered. And once I started to like get the hang of it and stop getting as frustrated at dying, it definitely helps me to just be able to keep playing the game and not worry too much about how much I'm dying. I mean, there's definitely been times where I've been like really annoyed, like especially if I happen to be trying to get back to the souls that I had in order to, be able to keep those. So like with this boss with the High Lord Wolnir, most of the times after the first attempt that I fought him, I had no problem getting back to him, and because of the fact that the fight doesn't actually start until you pick up the chalice or whatever it's called, then I didn't really have any issues, because it's like, okay, I just have to get back to him. I can pick up the souls, and then I start the fight. I don't have to get back in the fight in order to pick up the souls. But the problem, of course, that ended up happening was then I was dying to that skeleton with the bleed sword, which was really pissing me off. But yeah, trying to think though. I think probably the boss I died to the most was probably the tree. Yeah, that was probably the one that I died most on. And then maybe after that, it might be Vort. Yeah, probably he was next. And then Wolnir. But even Wolnir, I mean, like, I didn't die to Wolnir a lot. I died more on the way to Wolnir than I died against Wolnir itself. So, but yeah, I think it, like I said, I think it just helps that I have enough knowledge about how these games work to where I can usually manage. And there's a ring that I got. I can't even remember the name of it, but it's one that basically gives you additional iframes. And then there's another one that improves your dexterity a bit and makes you what's the word that they use? It basically makes you kind of like disappear a little bit when you're rolling. And I don't know if you disappear to enemies or if you just if it's just making you invisible to yourself so that you can see the enemies around you more easily. I don't know exactly how it works, but I used both of those rings during the last fight, and I'll probably keep them equipped most of the time unless I'm going into an area where I want to be using pyromancy more, and then I'll probably have stuff that's more focused on that and so on and so forth. Oh, the one area that probably was the most frustrating to me was actually the area leading up to the Abyss Watchers. At least I think that's the one.
Fairnskeep?
Yes, assuming that's where the poison swamp was.
Yes.
I hated that so much, especially because I don't know if there's like a rusted iron ring like there is in Dark Souls 1 that helps you to move faster through the swamps. And so the only thing that I could find the only thing that I read in this checklist that I'm using, because I'm using the checklist from the same thing that I used for Dark Souls 1, is that if you get a weapon with quick step, it can help you move through the swamps faster. And that definitely helped a lot, but that one was so annoying. And I think, let's see here. So of course there's those big giant mage thingies that you can, like, if you get them to stop in the fire, then that'll do a lot of damage to him and it'll kill him pretty quickly. But it's just like so often I would get them close and they would be shooting those like the flaming skull things at you, and that would end up killing me after I killed them. Or there'd be like, I mean, the poison itself didn't give me that big of an issue. It was mostly moving in the poison swamp that gave me the big issue. And then of course, I literally went up to the third altar where you extinguish the flame probably 20-30 times before I realized that that's where that third flame was. I mean, like, seriously, I went through that area. I mean, it's like I had the pattern down well enough to where I knew how to get to that area. But then wanting to get past that area, I mean, like, I just walk right past the altar, not even realizing that that was the third altar to extinguish the flame, and just continued on. And then I'd go down into the swamp below and deal with those stupid what are they called, obelisks that turn you to, I mean, that, curse you, and dealing with them, and then the giant wizard thing, and then just like, there's still stuff in that area that I would like to go back and finish getting, because I didn't end up getting everything. I just got so sick of dealing with that, and so I just was like, okay, I have the door open, I'm gonna move forward, and I'll come back at a later time. And I think that if I had something like a rusted iron ring, I don't know if that exists in this game, I haven't looked it up, then it would probably help a lot. But just how slow it is to move through that swamp really made it difficult for me to be motivated to go back in there, especially because those stupid obelisks they just piss me off so much. Like, I could deal with them in the sewers or catacombs or whatever it was called in Dark Souls 1, because I rarely had to go down there. And usually when I did need to go down there, because of the fact that I wasn't inhibited in terms of my movement, it wasn't that bad. I could just, okay, I'll just, use my Zweihander, or a lot of times I was using the Titanite pole, from those Titanite demons. I'd use that, and that was, really fast, and so, like, I could hit them quicker and everything. But it's just this time, because of the fact that, okay, I'm impeded in movement, and it's more difficult to hit them. The only times that I was really having much of any success was when I happened to be able to get them enough with arrows to take them out. And, yeah, anyway. Stuff like that just was annoying, and I was very glad when I got out of that. I was like, oh yes, I got out of this, and then I fought the Abyss Watchers and didn't have too much trouble, and then I went to the catacombs and I'm like, I hate it here. I hate it so much. I mean, thankfully it didn't take me nearly as long to get through as I thought it would, but it still took me quite a while. So, yeah. But really, I mean, as expected, just like with Dark Souls Remastered, I've talked a bunch about Dark Souls 3, and that's all I have now.